right, the real survivors are here. You made it till the end, and you're hanging out to be with me, so I'm very grateful. We're going to talk about the evolution of sustainable DeFi. How many DeFi users, if you're a DeFi user as of today, can I see a show of hands? Okay. Good. So for the rest of you, this will be more valuable. This is a 30,000-foot view of DeFi. This is meant to bring more DeFi users in confidently, give us a little bit of the lay of the land and an understanding of what is sustainable DeFi, because it's important to be a sustainable user. So let's find out what that means. First, what is Venus? It's an autonomous smart contract-based liquidity protocol where you can supply and borrow crypto assets at variable interest rates. So the way this works is you connect your crypto wallet, like MetaMask, you supply collateral, and you borrow against it at up to 90% loan to value of what you supplied. So this is a way to hold on to your precious Bitcoin or Ethereum over the long term, but while accessing working capital. So imagine you get paid in Bitcoin, and you think that Bitcoin is going to go up over the next few years. You probably don't want to sell that Bitcoin, right? You want to collateralize it and pull out a loan against it. This is how a lot of people use protocols like Venus in DeFi. So a little bit about Venus from a performance perspective. It does this many loans on the blockchain. That's an important distinction. Blockchain-based, right? Because whenever you trade or you take a loan at an exchange at a place like Coinbase, you're doing it on someone else's server and trusting them fully with your crypto, and you don't have the keys to your wallet. And this is not what Satoshi had in mind, right? Satoshi wanted things to be transparent, and done in a way that was immutable and on-chain. So this is the dream that's realized by decentralized finance. Some other interesting stats. These are actually older numbers. I debuted this talk back in November, and things have changed dramatically. So you could see where we've gone from November to today. So current assets are approaching 3 billion now, and monthly active users also have gone to about twice as high as a number. So we'll get more into the growth of DeFi, which is happening right now, and it's also really exciting. But I'm here to talk about the most important area of cryptocurrency, which is this idea of DeFi, and let's see what it boils down to. So these are the first principles of DeFi. It's self-custodial, it's disintermediated, and it's decentralized. These are kind of buzzwords, right? You hear them a lot. What does it actually mean? But it means that you're in control of your assets at all time. You have no middlemen, and anybody can access this infrastructure. Finally, when you think of DeFi, this is what should come to mind, that it's transparent, that it's global, that it has peer-to-peer capabilities, and that it's truly financial infrastructure that's all around the world and that anybody can access. So where did this really get started? The first smart contract-based systems that gave rise to DeFi were on Ethereum mainnet and came in the form of swap and stable coins and lend and borrow. So swap, if you know, if you're a DeFi user, you've probably heard of Uniswap. Stable coins, you've probably heard of decentralized stable coins like DAI. MakerDAO has probably over $100 billion in value locked into it as of today. And lend and borrow is the category, of course, that Venus falls into, and some of our peers in the industry are protocols like Aave and Compound. Compound was an early entrant, and so was Aave. So a few years on, the confluence of these building blocks or Legos, as we call them in DeFi, because they're composable and you can put them together. It's inspired an explosion of innovation that literally resulted in some bad practices too. There was too much experimentation. There was too much innovation. You know, right? You can have too much of anything, and people were going too fast. So we can relate to this era as DeFi 1.0. And a lot of these projects were notorious for bad user experience. This is one very famous DeFi project, which is still around today. and one that is loved and admired, but also known for bad user experience. Usually people put up with this bad user experience because they're engineers. No offense if you're an engineer, but we've come a long way since this infamous project called Curve styled itself out of something from the early 90s. But of course, UX hasn't been the only challenge to DeFi 1.0. One of the main reasons why retail users haven't heard of DeFi. This phase was characterized by going too fast, and there were, of course, were some implosions that were of economic nature, like Terra Luna that you guys have heard about. That's what we call Ponzi-nomics. So it's, of course, it's important to understand the economic fundamentals of what you're investing into. And I look forward to the day that we don't have to mention Do Kwon or Celsius ever again. So security is also important, right, because of all of these implosions, and that's why it's good to understand how these different protocols are rated. Here you can see a leaderboard that's offered by a big security audit company, and they've actually graded all of the different protocols. Some of them are networks, some of them are applications. You see Venus at the bottom of this list, but this is a list of actually like hundreds of applications filtered for the top scores. So we have 90.73, and the very top of this list you have Bancor there, 93.79. So understanding how audited something is really important. We actually have the most security audits in our sector. So that brings us to the present, and we've come so far in just a few years, which makes me excited for what's to come. Present-day DeFi has taken us from these three original use cases of lending and borrowing and swap and stable coins, and added a host of other more interesting applications. So you can see those labeled in white in the middle. We have things that are the equivalent of bonds. We have DeFi insurance. We have things that are the equivalent of overnight repo, index funds. So the capabilities are really expanding. But where is most of the activity concentrated? Well, this is a map of revenue from a couple years ago. As you can imagine, this revenue's actually increased significantly since I pulled this data. But 6 out of the 10 most profitable DeFi protocols come from lending. That shouldn't be a surprise because lending is a use case that we're all familiar with, and that's how we interact with the financial system a lot, right? If we want to buy a home. So it's no surprise that this is driving the most product market fit that we can see here. So what are some of the narratives that are driving lending that make it so successful, since people, I don't know how many people are using DeFi for mortgages yet, but that's the dream. Well, it turns out that there are about 3 of them that are getting interesting. So one is RWA. You guys, I think, heard that in the last topic, or the last panel. They mentioned RWA as a trend. And in 2023, the most tokenized asset classes were actually equities and real estate. So close behind private credit and luxury goods that have been tokenized. And we're seeing a broader acceptance of an integration of DeFi into traditional finance through RWA. Here you can see another view of the breakdown of different types of asset classes that are being tokenized. This is as of November, so this is a little dated data, very stale if you consider like the speed at which crypto goes, right? So I think that we've probably doubled this by now. It'll be interesting to see what the latest data looks like. But if you're interested, this is from a website called rwa.xyz, which is a pretty neat dashboard for tracking the tokenization of assets, rwa.xyz. Tokenized treasuries are another big one. As of this presentation, they went to $675 million in tokenized treasuries. A lot of interesting players have entered, like Ondo, maybe some of you have heard of, tokenizing US Treasuries. US Treasuries are one of the biggest, or probably the biggest source of tokenization from real-world finance, and I would expect this to continue. People like having access to RWAs like US Treasuries for a source of stable, reliable yield, of course. Okay, another narrative. Show of hands, who has heard of liquid staking tokens? Okay, good. Some people. So for those of you that don't know, this is the largest category in DeFi. As of this presentation, it was 22 billion in TVL, which is probably increased by an order of magnitude over the past 6 months. And we've seen the proliferation of LST protocols signifying a major shift in the staking landscape. Here's another look at this growth in terms of market cap. So leaders like Lido to new decentralized protocols are diversifying this growth in this sector. Lido has, I think as of today, about $38 billion in TVL, which is pretty extraordinary for one player. So a notable concern remains about the centralization of that power, with Lido having 30% of the market and 70% of their liquid staked ETH tokens are actually on one protocol. So that's not very decentralized in practice, and these are some of the nuances and issues that are being discussed within DeFi as it evolves. So the next narrative that we're going to highlight is called real yield, and this one emerged from solving a real problem. This is important because users are generally rewarded and incentivized through inflationary mechanisms. So, you know, like how the monetary system works a little bit. Here we're looking at just how much inflation some of these projects have been injecting, up to 200% inflation. So they're printing lots of tokens to try and woo you in. But that's not really real value if it's purely born of inflation, right? So something to be mindful of. So the result of that is the TVL of a lot of these projects dwindles as soon as the emissions run out. This is not sustainable DeFi, right? So they're trying to bring people in by offering lots of tokens at a very high rate. And so as you can see, once the emissions end, we have a very quick kind of depreciation of the capital that's locked into these projects. These are just a few projects that we've captured this view of. But what about airdrops, you say? Maybe there's some of you like to track the airdrops out there. Well, it turns out it's the same story. Users in, users out. It's not sustainable. Airdrops are not a way to grow DeFi over the long term. You might get a quick hit or some results in the near term, but you're not going to keep those people in, right? So it still is a problem that we need a solution for. And that's what real yield is. So instead of relying on inflation or relying on airdrops, real yield drives incentives for users to adopt DeFi with revenue, okay? So this is the answer that Venus has come up with. And you can think of this as a user loyalty rewards program. You help to secure the protocol with the governance token for 90 days at a minimum of 1,000 tokens, and that gives you rights to access the incentive program. We see other competitors following suit and offering something similar. So we do think that this is the way to sustainably grow DeFi. Let's look ahead now. It's not always an easy task, but how might we look for clues about evaluating the future of DeFi? So we talked about the past, we talked about the present. How might we gain some insight into the future? Well, look at the velocity of code development. If you want to know what the smartest people in the world are doing, look at GitHub. GitHub is the nexus of innovation, and GitHub pull requests is the atomic unit of innovation. Here we have mapped in our industry of lending, on DeFi lending, the rate of code-based commits from last year. Morpho is a great project that has done a fantastic job at innovating a completely immutable protocol. And second to Morpho is Venus. Then you have other notable names like Aave, that we've mentioned also, Centrifusion RWA project. Spark is a fork of Aave that was launched by MakerDAO, and Compound down there at the end. So kind of an interesting view of the rate of innovation going on in DeFi. This is another view of code-based commits, but now not only lending, but the entire industry. So you have networks here at the top. You have Gnosis Chain leading the way. They must have really good coffee in their office. Then Cardano, ICP, and Ethereum leading the way. Okay, so what's another way that we can evaluate the rate and the efficiency of innovation at some of these protocols? The story is not only about code, but it's also about governance. Governance because the way that you make changes to the protocol is decentralized. Token holders are people with power that can affect change on the protocol. So the rate at which these proposals are executed might indicate how fast that innovation is actually being deployed. At the top, Aave is leading the way, then Venus, and then Maker, and Compound, which is also the leaderboard of capital secured by these protocols in the lending sector. So if we completely zoom out and look at DeFi holistically, the current valuation is $56 billion. So this is new data. I've been showing you guys kind of stale data, but this is like a new view. We were very quiet for a long time. So this is, this part here was pretty sideways. It's a very cyclical industry, right? This is the time not to go to conferences. And here we are coming up, setting new all-time highs. So this is a really exciting time in decentralized finance. I'm personally very excited about what's to come. Analysts say that in 5 years, in 6 years, by 2030, we'll get to $230 billion in market value in DeFi. The same story for users. Users went sideways for a little bit, but now we're getting a new inflection point in user growth, which suggests that we're unlocking new audiences of users. Not just the ones that are coming in and coming out, but that new people are paying attention to DeFi. So hopefully it means that we're solving some of those user experience problems that we discussed a little earlier. So this is the vision for Venus. It's to bring DeFi to the masses and power financial services of all sorts in all regions with liquidity that it's amassing. Like we've seen, we went from $1 billion to $3 billion in the past 6 months. And since we've started here together at this session, we've made it clear what DeFi is all about. And we've done a high-level overview of the evolution of DeFi from past, present, and future. And we also have some clues about what may come next. So given the times we're living in, I thought I'd leave you with an AI-generated haiku about DeFi. Swift finance flows free, unbound chains of trustless ease, DeFi dawns rises. Thank you very much. Do we have time for questions? Any questions? Yes, sir.
I noticed that the usage of DeFi protocols is very correlated to the crypto movement in terms of the Bitcoin prices. When the Bitcoin rises, the number of users rises as well. When do you think that the uses of DeFi will be independent from the overall price of cryptocurrency?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I haven't seen any statistic that has measured the correlation over time between user growth and TVL growth, or user growth and Bitcoin market cap. And if you're suggesting that the correlation has been steady, yeah, I don't know. I know that people get a lot more excited about our industry when there's value accrual, right, for obvious reasons. But if you look at the trends of what's happening in places like El Salvador and countries that are adopting crypto throughout their entire value chain, like Argentina, what we see is that it's becoming a part of everyday life. And so these types of shifts and trends that lend to people using it all the time to transact as a part of their living, that will drive the decorrelation of user growth to TVL. So I think that's already happening, and there's more and more examples of that in different countries, but that's a good question. Thank you. Any other questions? Great. Thanks again.
Fantastic, Brad. Thank you so much for that insightful presentation. We are heading into the networking apero. So hosted by Kraken downstairs. You have a full hour of networking. Make the most of it and see you tomorrow. Thanks again.